I talk a lot about micro skills, those small intentional actions that create big impact. That's the focus of Micro Skills, Small Actions, Big Impact, a business and leadership book about transforming your work and relationships through simple, deliberate practices that anyone can champion. Whether you're leading a team, building your career, or navigating everyday challenges, micro skills help you show up with more intention and effectiveness. This holiday season, Micro Skills is available at all major booksellers, including Bookshop and Amazon. You can get it in hardcover, ebook, or audio. Small actions, big impact. This is the Visible Voices podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Resa E. Lewis. Today I'm bringing you voices of two women who are literally, quite literally, in fact, making voices visible. Voices that have been silenced, forgotten, or tucked away on dusty library shelves for far too long. My guests are Lisa Endo Cooper and Bremond MacDougall, the co-founders of Quite Literally Books, a small heritage press dedicated to resurrecting compelling, hard to find, and out-of-print works by women, mostly women, authors. From Jessie Redmond Fawcett, the Harlem Renaissance editor who mentored Langston Hughes, to Nelia Gardner White, who went from kindergarten teacher to prolific novelist. They're bringing these voices back into print with gorgeous additions that honor both the stories and the storytellers. Today we'll explore how a simple conversation between two longtime friends about what this next chapter was going to look like became a mission to reshape how we think about American literary heritage, one beautifully designed book at a time. Lisa, Bremond, welcome to the Visible Voices podcast.
Hi, Resa. Thank you. Thanks for having
us here.
It's wonderful to have you. What's super interesting to me is this is speaking another language. This is also business. So I want to know a little bit about the business of creating a publishing company, because I've seen this in a few places, authors creating their own imprints or people doing just limited publications in a year outside of the big publishing houses. So there must have been a huge learning curve with that. Bremond, why don't you take it first, then Lisa?
Yes, it has been a huge learning curve. And when we started 2 or 3 years ago, and we were talking to people about it, and people would say, "Oh, a publishing company, you're so brave," which now we know that was not a compliment. That was more of a, "Oh my gosh, what are you thinking?" Because there are so many threads to this. There are so many things. It's not just the part that Lisa and I love and what drew us to it in the first place, which is picking books, reading books, finding books that we love, and making the beautiful editions of them. The design work, that has been really fun. Not something that, it's something that we had to learn also. But yes, the business part of it, neither one of us has ever really run a business before. And so that has been very challenging to keep all of the things going and coming together at the same time to put these books out and now hopefully to sell them.
Lisa, I'm interested in the finances. Like, how did you navigate learning the finances, having the finances? Because I can't imagine that this is an inexpensive venture. And also, you both have now come to New York City, also an expensive city, but a place, a mecca of publishing.
Yeah, we are very fortunate in that we are funded by the generosity of Bremond, and her family has been very supportive. Family being her husband Michael, who has a background in finance, and he's one of the people who has really been instrumental in helping us understand all of this. because I'm a lawyer, because I look at business plans, because I work with companies, I had some knowledge, but it's quite a different animal when you're trying to put it together from scratch. And the learning curve has been steep. We're still on it. Half the time we're sliding down it, screaming, holding onto our, our hats. But we're also very fortunate that in addition to Michael, we have other people that we've hired, consultants, who are experts in different things. We have a wonderful operations manager who has helped us understand how to actually produce a book. And we have hired consultants who have helped us understand how to market a book. We are just learning that all those things are very different from selling a book, which has proven to be that's one of the biggest challenges. We've produced an incredible, amazing product, an object that we're so proud of, but getting it out into the world, into the hands of people that we think will love it too, it's hard. It's very hard to do.
I always share that I fall in love with my guests before I meet them because I love what you're doing. I love the work. And you talked about selling, and there's been an intentionality around selling. You're not selling on Amazon. And I'm wondering for audience members that are getting to know you and the books and what your intention is behind them, why no Amazon or Amazon-like organizations?
I mean, that was something that we chewed on. And I mean, we didn't really struggle with it because we always were fairly committed to trying to not be on Amazon. We love libraries. We love independent bookstores. Um, we we do all our fulfillment for people that order from our website. We do all the fulfillment here at my house, and the books are so beautiful. And then we wrap them beautifully in brown paper, and we send them out into the world. And when you open your box, it's a beautiful experience. It's a really, you really feel like you've got something special. And we really think that's important. That's an important part of our brand, an important part of Lisa and me. And so we didn't want them to just get slung out in any old cardboard. In any old cardboard box, and you open it up and, oh, here's a book and it's really pretty, but it doesn't feel special or like it's coming from us. And so that was, but yeah, we just love, we love other ways of getting books. And there are other ways of getting books.
I want to get into the beauty of the design, and it's really important to me. A lot of times people will say to me, Resa, you're a physician, but sometimes you're not talking to physicians. I don't understand. But the categories that we talk about on the Visible Voices is healthcare, equity, and current trends. And so what I'll say is, your intention behind the books you select, there's an equity component. The healthcare component, I'm going to talk about the fact that you've decided to come together and live in New York City, being in community, being around your besties, being where you have people you love who love you. It's all a part of health and healthcare. And current trends will just say these small independent publishing houses I've seen. I want to circle back to one more piece of the finances is in the decision to avoid, say, the big organization in terms of an outlet for sales. Have you run the numbers? Have you thought about that part? Does it make sense financially?
Yeah, it's well, that's a really good question, and there's a lot to it. But the truth is, when you are selling to bookstores, but especially through Amazon, you're not getting a very big cut of the pie. One of the reasons why we need to sell most of our books through our own website is because that's the only way that we even come close to really breaking even at the moment. Hopefully someday we will be able to get a little bit of a profit out of it. But right now we're just trying to break even. And every time a book goes out into the world through Amazon, you're giving a deep discount. And because the cost of production for us is so high, because we are putting out a book that's not your typical paperback, our cost of production is unusually high. We have them printed in Germany because we were unable to find a printer in the US that could do what we wanted. There's a certain kind of paper that we use. It's called Munkin paper.
I'm so glad because I actually have the book, and I would love to, on other recordings, I know it's sort of, I'd love to go through each detail. So
Sure.
walk us through the paper. We'll start with the paper.
So Munkin paper is a special paper that is milled in, I believe it's Sweden, and I could be wrong about that. Bremond, do you remember?
I don't.
In a lovely European country, Munkin paper is made. It's a very premium paper. It smells gorgeous as well as the feel of the paper. Um, we encountered it actually for the first time, I believe, in maybe it was a Persephone book, which is another small press that comes out of the UK. And we just fell in love with the quality of this paper. So we had to track that down. It is not readily available in the US. And certainly
And we looked
we,
and looked and looked.
we did look. So that's one of the reasons that informed our printing choice of being in Europe.
And the font?
Yes. So our book was designed by Louise Feely, and we found Louise through kind of an extensive internet search. We were looking for a female designer. We wanted someone who was a woman. Like that's part of what we're about, our brand is about, but it's also just kind of our desire to amplify women's voices, even the ones, like Louise is incredibly well known in the design world. You cannot walk around the streets of New York without seeing signage that she's designed. And it's a beautiful aesthetic. It's kind of a callback if you think to vintage travel posters from Italy, like that's kind of her feel. And we just fell in love with that aesthetic. We met with her and told her what we were trying to do, and she chose this font for us. She came up with the title font and also the font that's inside the covers.
Tell us about the glue and the binding to make sure of its readability and pickup ability.
That's called dispersion. It's dispersion printing, right, Lise?
Dispersion binding, yes.
Dispersion binding, yes, and it's a special binding, and it does cost more, and it adds to the production cost. But we really wanted it to be able to lie flat and not break the spine, and be able to be held easily in one hand. If you're holding onto the subway pole with one hand, you can hold your book with the other one. So yeah, that was definitely an intentional thing that we had seen other places. We didn't know what it was. Now we do. But that was something that we really was important to us also.
If you look at I'm sorry, just to finish the spine. So it's called lay flat binding also. And like Burr was saying, you can hold it in one hand, which is great if you're a bathtub reader, which we both are. And what it'll do is it'll bend, but it won't break. So it'll create a nice patina on the spine. When you put it on the shelf, you can see that the book has been read, but there won't be any breaks in the spine anywhere. You can turn it to any page.
And finally, the cover design, which someone else noted looks a bit like a wood etching.
That's exactly right.
The covers were done by an artist named Anthony Russo, who is a well-known artist. He has he's in the New Yorker often. Does illustration for the New York Times, and he came to us through Louise. And I think, Lisa, didn't we tell her we'd gone down sort of a rabbit hole with the woodcut?
Yes, a Rockwell Kent. So
yes.
Bremond and I had read a book, a memoir that we're hoping to publish someday. And this, the woman who was writing the memoir, had worked for Rockwell Kent at one point. We were like, who is this guy? So Bremond and I do tend to go down rabbit holes. If something piques our interest, then we'll just go there. And we became sort of big Rockwell Kent fans. We found his etchings and his woodcuts, and they're incredible. And we thought it was a wonderful aesthetic. And we told Louise about our fascination, and she said, I know exactly the right artist for your first book covers.
For audience members that don't know what is meant by a heritage press, can you explain that to us?
Sure. It's a term that we picked knowing that it might sound a little different in the United States than in the United Kingdom. But we thought it was an important word because by heritage press, we mean that we are taking on all the stuff that came before. We are a product of everything that came before us. And sometimes that's really good. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's the bad, it's the icky, it's the ew. It comes along with it. And if you're going to be putting something old back into the world, you have to be prepared to deal with a lot of the ooh that comes with it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you shared that. I read The Pink House, I read Plum Bun, and I opted to not read Dorothy Canfield Fisher's. It was a little bit of the ooh factor of hearing about her bio. Perry Class wrote an article in the New Yorker, February 2023. In this article, she talked about Dorothy Canfield Fisher, and she writes that her novels took family life and childhood development seriously, glorifying in the daily accumulation of small insights and struggles for mastery. And in the book of hers that you chose, there was a change in gender roles. She ended up being a woman that worked outside the home. Her husband ended up being a stay at home parent. And that was very provocative and progressive. And the book was written over 100 years ago. But yet there's this question about her history with being sort of one of the founders of the Montessori movement, but yet also having overlap with eugenics. And I'm wondering how you decided to navigate that and ultimately say, you know what, we're still going to put her book out there. Bremond, why don't you take it first?
Well, part of it, I think, is that we're recognizing that women are complex. That there's more to women than just what they wrote. I don't feel like we hold men to the same standard. I don't think that I I don't think that men are sort of not read because they have a part of them that is unsavory. Um, and she had a lot of parts to her that were, that were really progressive and good. Lisa and I talk a lot about and think a lot about blinders and people who, and our authors are some of them who are able to write these very sort of progressive or open-minded or just really books that highlight different people or different ways of doing things. But then they are not able to see how that conflicts with other viewpoints that they have and other things that they do. And we all have that, right? Like we all have our blinders. And so we've sort of chosen to acknowledge that those things, those things are there. But we feel like the work itself is worth putting out there, and it's worth talking about. Why or why not?
So this was your first printing, these three books, and I know the goal is to have a second printing or a second release, I should say, in November ahead of the holidays. We're dropping this episode at the time of the holidays with the goal of encouragement that our audience purchase these as gifts for their loved ones. Can you give us an inside peek, a scoop about what these three books may be?
Well, we can tell you one of them,
Yeah.
right, Burr? One
Yeah.
of them we'll just tell you outright. It's called Her Land, and it's by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. It's probably the one that's the most well known of the ones that we're putting out this time. Her Land can be found elsewhere, of course. We did. However, I will say that our version is beautiful. Again, all the things that we just talked about in terms of the physical book. But also with a fresh forward by a writer named Nicola Dare, who has a wonderful way of framing some of the things that are problematic about Charlotte Perkins Gilman.
Because
And
there are.
there are. And this time around, all of our covers are designed by a woman who is named Megan Mulholland. A lot of things come to us through serendipity. We find that the universe tends to sort of put people and books in front of us that we're meant to find. And I met Megan at a McNally Jackson event, and she turned out to be an amazing illustrator who has done such a beautiful job on the next three covers.
All my guests, I say, and I ask, and I'm going to ask both of you now, when did you realize you had a voice and when did you start using that voice?
I think I realized I had a voice early on. I think I realized I had a voice
You
when I was
did.
when I was young. And then I think I lost it. I think I lost it for a long time. Um, and so it's sort of new and different for me at this point in my life to be speaking out and to be doing something that is so public and could fail. That's been really hard because I think for a long time I was raising kids and raising a husband and just, sort of doing that stuff and helping my mom die and just all of that sort of stuff. And it was very personal and very sort of quiet. And so this is
And in the home, Berber, you were
and
in
in
the
the home.
home.
Yes. And so this is sort of a finding my voice again. And it's been sort of terrifying.
Yeah. Lisa, your
Yeah.
voice.
I think I first realized that I had something to say that someone might want to hear when I was in 7th grade. And we had this amazing English teacher named Margaret Marcus, and Bremond will back me up on this. She was very special and had so much to do, I think, with I always loved books. I was already an avid reader, but she made me trust myself as a writer. And that was one of the first times I felt like what I had to say was interesting and important to her and gave me some confidence and definitely shaped how I saw myself as a student and as a person who had a right to say something, a right to be heard. And that was new, I think, for me. But it came to me at 12, which I think is incredible. Like a lot of people don't, I think, have someone telling them that their voice is important until much later, or no one tells you, and you have to sort of figure that out yourself. And like Vermont, this venture that we're, this adventure that we're on, definitely is giving me a new way to think about my voice. Like Bremond, I was raising daughters and husbands and dogs and practicing law. And a lot of times you can kind of go into automatic pilot, I think, when you do those things. And in this moment when we're speaking on camera and podcasts, like this is not something that is comfortable for me. And it takes a lot, I think, out of both of us to do this because it's so new, but it's also so thrilling and exciting, and it's risky in a way that I haven't allowed myself to be in so long. And so, yeah, it's a ride.
Well, and we're Frog and Toad, so we're doing it together, which is really fun. That's actually
Yes.
what makes it okay.
Yeah, that's where this all started. It was like a conversation during the pandemic when, everyone was reconnecting with old friends and spending a lot more time on the phone. Like we were like, okay, we're turning 50 this year. Like, how do we want to spend this next bit? The last 25 went by really fast in a lot of ways. And what do we want to do that like really matters to us? And one of them, and we were talking about this before we started recording, Resa, you mentioned, like community, right? Like the what it means to be in community with people and people that you love. And so for Bremond and me to be able to find a way to do that together has been like the biggest gift.
Yeah. What do you hope readers will discover about American literary history through the authors and works you're bringing back into print?
I think they will discover, I don't know if I hope this, I think they will discover that a lot has not changed, that you can pick up a 100-year-old book and it is still, we're still talking about those same issues. We're still grappling with the same gender issues, issues of race, issues of sexuality, all of that. We're still working on that 100 years later. And I think Lisa and I were both surprised at how true that turned out to be. And all the books that we've read leading up to the ones that we've published, how much things have not changed.
Yeah. The next three they're about to drop in anticipation of the holidays. You mentioned Herland. There are two others. What is that theme? If the theme for the first three is home, what would you say is the thread for the next three?
Well, we've talked about a table. We've talked about that voices at the table and who gets to come to the table. What else, Lise? Can you think of-
Honestly, it's also still home. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
well, true.
interesting, right? Like, once again, like I think we're like talking about tables and things because we were trying to get away from like, are these about home again? But
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is they are. All three of them really are. And what makes a home? What constitutes a home? And the table piece that we were talking about is we were talking about the power that women hold in these spaces. And in each book, you see that play out very differently. I will say one of our books, and I think it's okay to say this, I won't tell you what it is, but we're actually republishing a cookbook because we found that not the recipes so much, although those are really interesting. It's the commentary. Funnily, is that a word? Funny enough, it's one of the funniest books we read. The author has such a wonderful, dry sense of humor that comes out in the prose that comes, at the beginning of each section. And it was written, Bremond, we're right. I totally forget when it was written.
1890s.
Okay, I was going to say 70s, but late 1800s. And it is for people who are in a very, what's the word? It's for like a normal household, right? What's expected, the standard. And I think it's really interesting to think about women in that space, that are being told, okay, this is how you run a home and this is what it's all about. But also the amount of power that a person who's running a home, who is the person behind the man, so to speak, actually wields quite a bit of power and control. Something to juxtapose with Herland, for example, where women are running a country.
Everything.
Where they're making everything happen.
Yeah.
Bremond, take us home. Bum. How can audience members, listeners, buy your books, read more about Quite Literally?
So our website is quiteliterallybooks.com, and we would love for you to visit us there. We are also on Instagram. We would love to sell you our books directly from our website. So if you can make your way there, we will package your book up beautifully and send it right out to you. We are also in independent bookstores. We are distributed through a distributor called Asterism, who mostly works with very small presses like us. So they are harder to find in bookstores. But please
they will order them for you. They will order them, but they won't be wrapped the way we wrap them, which I wish we had one to show you, Resa, because they're very pretty. Brown paper packages and wrapped just so, little origami action. If you go to our Instagram, you can actually see what that would look like, but they come like a present.
Lisa and Bremond, thank you so much for joining me on the Visible Voices podcast.
Thank you, Resa,
for having us.
This holiday season, give books that bring forgotten voices back to life. Quite Literally Books is resurrecting compelling works by women authors who've been overlooked for far too long. Discover Jessie Redmond Fawcett, the Harlem Renaissance editor who mentored Langston Hughes. Explore Nelia Gardner White, who went from kindergarten teacher to prolific novelist. And don't miss Charlotte Perkins Gilman's classic, Herland, just in time for the holidays. These aren't just beautiful editions, they're stories that still resonate today. Find them at quiteliterallybooks.com. Give voices that deserve to be heard. The Visible Voices podcast amplifies voices in the healthcare, equity, and current trend spaces. Our team includes Dr. Giuliano DePortu and me, Dr. Resa E. Lewis. Find me at Resa E. Lewis MD on social media or visit thevisiblevoicespodcast.com. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts and watch our episodes on YouTube. This podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect the opinions of their institutions. Information shared here should never substitute for clinical judgment or for medical advice. Together, we're making healthcare more equitable, one visible voice at a time.